All right, so yeah, so today we're talking about the press release best practices. These are largely specific to Press Advantage, but if you're using press releases with other folks, some of these will be applicable there as well. But again, since this is technically a Press Advantage training, we're definitely going to dive into some of the best practices for using our methodologies as well. So. The first one is what I call the branding stack. And I make this first because it's the absolute first thing that you should be doing when you're onboarding a new client with press releases. And so what this is, it's a 2, maybe a 3 release stack. You can do either one that establishes the brand in this kind of in the PR sense. So we're really focusing on the brand and kind of high level service offerings and that sort of thing. We're not going into anything particularly newsworthy. We're announcing the existence of this company. Even if the company or the brand has been around for a long time, you can still do this general announcement one. And the reason why I like to do this up front is it really sets that foundation for all of your future promotions, and it's something that you can refer back to. And then if you are doing that very first one and you can see where I say send it out to premium, you can send them a copy of this and say, look, you're paying me money. Yes, we're going to deliver SEO results. Yes, we're going to help enhance your brand reputation. But here, within the first month of you bringing us on board, I've got you in Yahoo, and I've got you in MSN, and I've got you in all of these different high-profile outlets that you can send them the links, or you can send them a PDF of it. And these are things, brands that they will recognize, and they will see tangibly that you're doing something for them. And it really gets away from some of the, boy, I really have to trust these folks that they know what they're doing, because SEO results takes months and that sort of thing. So this is really a great way to kind of help establish that that credibility with that new client. And obviously, if they're not a new client to you and you're just starting to use press releases with them, you maybe don't need to use that angle, but it won't hurt to pass that piece on to them. So how this stack is built is you have the first release, which is there to introduce the company or the brand. It's very company focused. You might talk, about who owns the company, what they're there for, include a quote about the company itself. And like I said, you send this one to the premium. Then you're going to wait a couple weeks, and then you're going to send out the second release, which introduces their primary service or product. You're going to describe some of the benefits as using quotes to do that, so that you get a little bit more freedom in how you describe it. Because remember, and we'll talk about this in the content best practice, but when you are using quotes, you have to, you can basically go free form because it's a quote, whereas outside of a quote, it has to be written like a news article. So we will always want to use our quotes to kind of massage a specific message that frees us up from having to be have it writing like a journalist. And then you're going to link to the whatever service or product page you're talking about here, and that's how you're going to really get that that extra push towards that specific service. And then if you want to do a third release, you can. Again, wait about 2 weeks, introduce another service or another product, or maybe cover a case study, but it's still overall very much focused on the company and the brand itself. And that's what we call the branding stack. I always recommend that you do this for every customer. There are a few vertical specific ways that we can approach a branding stack that we'll talk about when we're talking about vertical specific best practices. But I want you to understand that this branding stack should be that foundational piece when you are onboarding a new client into press releases. The next thing we're going to talk about is the release frequency. And you've heard me talk about this on webinars before, but the biggest mistake that people make when using press releases is not using enough of them. And when I say not enough, I mean for a local company, and again, all averages, right? Your average company and your average vertical and your average location, 2 releases a month for 4 to 6 months, period. And then you're going to back off to 1 every 4 to 6 weeks as long as they keep paying you. but you keep sending out press releases, while they're still a client of yours. For organic SEO, same general concept, but since organic SEO and a lot of verticals can be a much more competitive than your local map packs, you may not be able to back off quite as aggressively or even at all. And one of the reasons why this is important is this blurb, and this is something that we've seen through testing over and over and over again for the last decade. But you may have caught that there was a bit of a leak last week about, or earlier this week, with some SEO metrics that Google tracks. And obviously we don't see all of their algorithms. We don't see all of the weights in the algorithm and that sort of thing. But one of the guys that put out a really great blog post about some of the high-level takeaways he saw, had this to say, and basically, talking about how freshness is really a huge quality signal for Google, and that when you're getting links from pages that are fresh, it has a much better and higher impact in your rankings. And you can see that lesson. This partially explains why getting links from highly ranking pages and from news pages yields better ranking performance. And that's because of that freshness factor. We've always known that freshness is a thing. We see that in our response from Google when we put out new blog posts and things like that. Having press releases, which inherently are fresh, they're inherently newsworthy, they're inherently relevant, having those come out on a frequent basis is a huge benefit over doing it once in a while and starting to lose that freshness factor, because now you've constantly got that flow of freshness coming in. You're going to be able to vary that frequency a little bit based on the competitive picture. So like if I live in the middle of nowhere in South Central Missouri, if you're trying to rank a local business here, you'll send out one every month, maybe even one every 6 weeks from the get-go, right? If you are trying to rank somebody in Seattle or Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or some big city, you may have to start with 4 releases a month. So when you have that highly competitive picture, you can go up to 4 to 6 a month, but don't go beyond that, because it really doesn't help. We've tested all the way up to 15. More than 4 doesn't help much, but you can see a little bit of a bump from 6. After 6, there is no difference whatsoever. So don't do it. Save your money, save your credits. And then also for those highly competitive spaces, you might have to keep that frequency up, and you can't back off at all or back off as much. I do use this anecdote often, but we've got one guy who promotes dental sites with our stuff, and he uses 6 a month like clockwork, period. Doesn't ever back off, because he's in highly competitive geographies, and he's in a highly competitive sub niche of dental, and the competition there is so fierce that he just hits 6 a month like clockwork, never ending. So consistency is another best practice. As with all parts of life, consistency is key. You want your clients to be consistently in the news. We just talked about some of the freshness angle, just a couple slides ago. And so, consistency here is another method of keeping them fresh. But above all, you just like, any other type of content that you're putting out, pick that schedule and stick to it. Don't send out, a burst of 3 releases, skip a few months, send out a couple more, skip a few months, do some more. I see people doing that. It doesn't help as much as picking that schedule. You might send out the same number of releases, but if they're evenly spaced, or at least relatively evenly spaced, you're going to have a much better impact on that client's performance overall. And then plan ahead if you are somebody that needs to get approval from your clients on the content that you're publishing. But if you can avoid that, do, because it definitely limits your flexibility. So again, pick a schedule and stick to it. Be consistent, and do this on a per client basis. My recommendation is have a baseline plan. So I'm going to do it every 12 days for every client. And then you find that client that needs it every 8 days, or can get away with every 20 days in your assessment of the competitive landscape, then do that. But have that baseline that you plan for. And then that lets you kind of allocate your credits, bump your plan size up, bump it down, whatever you need to do to make sure that you're getting the right value out of things. And then it just makes your life easier, because you're not going back to the drawing board with every single client. And you may find that you don't need as many or you need more, and that's fine to shift that schedule, but just have the schedule and just be consistent about it and stick with it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is topic angles for your press release. People tend to overthink that they need this great newsworthy topic angle. I've talked about this, many times before, but something as simple as just getting a good review or a new contract can work as just fine. You don't have to have groundbreaking news every time you want to send out a press release. And so don't let that whole "I don't have a newsworthy angle" bit get into the way of maintaining that release schedule. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but if you spend a little bit more time on the angle, it really helps out a lot on the brand and reputation front, especially because when we're targeting that brand and reputation angle, we want people to get into that release. We want those prospective customers to read it. We want to really kind of direct how they're thinking about that client as by using that press release as a news article. And for a lot of your customers and clients, that's going to be just as important as just getting those rankings in place. We do have a downloadable PDF that can help with some angles, if you're struggling. And I've been playing around a little bit with some code in my spare time, such that it is that lets that will maybe eventually turn into a tool that will help you, kind of automatically get some angles. But at the end of the day, pick a great angle if you can. If you can't, pick something that works and just get that release out the door. All right, now on to content. Definitely think longer form. Longer form is, gone are the days of the 300-word press release. Some of the other providers out there may charge you for more than 300 words. As you know, we don't have any content limitations as far as that goes. We don't charge you for extra words, so use the extra words. We generally like to see around 650 words. Honestly, anything over 500 is going to be fine. Some specific verticals, especially more technical verticals, content-heavy verticals in general, where there's just a lot of knowledge and kind of detail that you might want to cover. 1,000 words. 1,200 words. I've seen people send out 2,000 word releases before. That can help. You will probably know if this is relevant for your vertical. If you're writing your own, get really familiar with our guidelines. The biggest delay we see with DIY releases, the stuff that you write yourself or that you have other people write for you that are not our writers, is the back and forth with our editorial staff to get your content into guideline compliance. It's a huge issue, and honestly, it's one reason why a lot of people that start with self-written releases end up having us do all the writing, because it's just a big pain to go back and forth. Even though our guidelines don't really change, a lot of times your VAs will change, and then they need to get into the swing of things. It turns into a big disaster. Obviously, don't use templates. Don't use fill in the blank releases, boilerplates, anything like that. That kind of thing is it just gets rejected, and we kind of get to know whether you are using those types of templates over time. And we can often see how people fix it and then they regress back to it, and they fix it and then they regress back to it. So, really focus on that unique content every single time. News article style. No blog posts, listicles, reviews, etc. When I say news article, remember, you talk, the guidelines have a lot of detail on that, but it's got to be something that could be published as a news article, not an editorial. And so no editorializing, no opinions, nothing like that. Put all of that in the quotes. Most people tell us to come up with the quotes. That's fine, we can do that, but you're really missing out if you're not generating your own quotes and making sure that you can get that little bit of salesiness in there, get that little bit of editorial type content in there that is there for the human reader, not the machine reader. And this is a little bit different from what I've said in the past, because what I've said in the past is, don't really worry about the human. I'm asking you to worry a little bit more about the human now, because we're seeing so many people click through on those branded searches and reading those press releases. So we want them to get, we don't want to squander that opportunity to put some a carefully crafted message in front of them. And then like I said, don't use the blog post, list equals reviews, that sort of thing. Use your release to link to that kind of content if you want, but not to publish that kind of content. Okay, best practice on backlinkings. The general guideline that we have today is to use up to 2 links per press release. Our form supports 3, and you can always add however many you want at the end, but we generally recommend that you use 2. Some people use 1. I think, I don't see a lot of benefit between 1 and 2, but having that extra backlink in there, I think, helps a lot to provide something that's contextually relevant. You can go up to 3 if you want. Some people will do that, and some people love to do that, and other people prefer to stay a little bit lower on the spammy spectrum. That first link should be topically relevant, whatever that angle is about, whether you're talking about a case study, a product, a service, a new review, whatever. Link to whatever it is that you're talking about, right? Be upfront about it, and then use that second link to link to something else that's branded as for that customer. So it could be a social platform, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be really anything as long as it's branded to them. If let's say in the first link you didn't link to something that's on their website, like a deep link, whether it's a case study, or something like that. Let's say you link to a GMB review. Well, take that third link and use that to link to something that's somewhat relevant, but it's actually on their homepage or on their website, so that you're really kind of adding that extra relevance, but it's bringing a backlink back to the main website as well. Usually you get that free link to the main homepage, so I do tell you, usually you want to avoid linking to the main root of the web page. Using the links for deep links, and again, you use your judgment as to what you think looks spammy or not, but 2, maybe 3 links is about how much you'd want to go to. And feel free to experiment. We get people experimenting all the time. I've seen people sending out 6 links, and I'm not sure why, but if it works for them, it works for them. And every strategy is a little bit different. So you may get better mileage out of that if you're just trying to, let's say you're trying to power up cloud stacks or something like that. It probably doesn't hurt to have 5 or 6 links in the press release. So now let's talk about anchor text. When in doubt, use a branded anchor. Period, end of story. Especially if it's in that longer form where you can get some topical relevance there. So you can see the example I'm using here. Let's say if we're targeting press release distribution, instead of press release distribution as the anchor text, I'm going to use press release distribution with press advantage. And of course, press advantage would be capitalized appropriately, but I didn't do it here. The reason why we do that is because that longer form brings the brand into play. It ties the brand together with the keyword, and it looks much less spammy than and keyword stuffy than just having that that specific keyword in there. Just pure branded anchors alone, like just linking to press advantage and linking to a deep page on our site, for example, would be fine too. And then naked anchors are fantastic. I really actually like naked anchors a lot because they usually have good keywords in the slug, especially when we're linking to content, and we like to link to content because content, pairing press releases with content is one of the best ways to use them. Do be careful with keyword anchors, especially long tail keywords. Remember that each one of these press releases goes out to 550 some odd outlets, which means if you're using longer tail keyword anchors, you're getting a bunch of keyword anchors to that piece of content, and that could really throw a bad signal to Google, and you're going to throw your keyword ratios out of whack. So our next best practice is image and video embeds. We're moving more into the rich media side of things now. And it's actually more easy than you think. Always include an image, period. And then there's no reason to not include an image. Post the image on the target site so that client website have the image on it. Doesn't have to be linked anywhere on it, but it should be on it. And it should not be to us, because we want, when that image gets traction on Google and when it shows up in like an image search or something like that, we want it to go to their website. We don't want the Press Advantage Amazon S3 bucket to show up as the as the host for that. There's no reason to send that link equity back to us, no matter how much it is or how little it may be. 100% use that opportunity to get that back to your client, and then use a good branded alt text. So whatever sounds relevant, just make sure that the brand is in there as well. You don't want to miss out on that extra brand mention, because it does get when an image gets clicked through, say, they're going to look at that, and they're going to that branded anchor is relevant for that. Include a video if you can. You may not want to start right away with a video, but you'll definitely want to add one as soon as possible. If possible, to just get a little 5-minute video done before you send out the very first press release, I would recommend that. It doesn't have to be specific to the topic at hand, so it can just be a general video about the company. So even if part of your SOP is make sure that client gets a 5-minute intro video up on their YouTube channel, and then you're just going to embed that in every single press release, that's fine too. But if you're sending out a press release about a case study, say, and they have a video component to that, embed that video into the press release about that case study, even if you're linking back to a text version of the case study, for example. So kind of get creative here with what you do, but if you can embed a video, embed it. Period. The only requirement, so to speak, is that it's a branded video. YouTube hosted only. We do support Vimeo, so if you really wanted to use Vimeo, you can. But there's no SEO value to hosting an image or a video on Vimeo. You're going to get a lot of value out of hosting it on YouTube. It's going to start ranking better. You may get some click-through views and stuff that is going to help that YouTube channel, thrive a little bit more. So, there is absolutely no reason to not host it on YouTube. Now let's talk about Schema. So again, end of story, use Schema. You should already have Schema on your website. If it's WordPress and you're using Yoast is generating Schema for you. You've got Schema somewhere, most likely. If you don't, there's a lot of good training out there to figure out how to get some Schema. You can write into support if you really don't know, and we can send you, a couple links. But you definitely want to use Schema. When you're crafting that schema, make sure that you include a link to the Press Advantage organization page in the same as block, as that's for the prompt Google to tie everything we do back together with that entity. And then don't forget about the schema block that you get on a per press release basis as well. That can really add some specific relevant schema. Obviously, the example you've probably heard me use before is if you are working with a real estate agent and they list a $500,000 house, you could include some listing specific schema in the press release that announces that listing. And it's a great way to get some more relevance in there. We've had people use these per release blocks to get rich snippets in place, all kinds of fun stuff. So it's got to be pure JSON, which may make sense. It's the stuff that's inside of the script tag. So if you're looking at the source code of your website or something like that, it's the piece that's in the JSON LD script tag. We do now support you pasting the whole script tag in. We'll just take it out of there. That used to be a problem with us. We do see a lot of folks using complicated schema that is not valid JSON. It has to be valid JSON. So use a linter like jsonlint.com, where you just paste the schema in and ask it to verify it, make sure that it's syntactically correct. Is probably the biggest problem that people have with uploading schema to our site, is that it doesn't validate correctly. Now, the one thing that's not on this slide that I do want to point out, and this is something that is developed over the last week and a half, is on that per release schema block. I had a couple of customers over the last week, and one in particular who's very let's say he gets very intricate into how he uses schema and other technical SEO. He wanted the ability to include like the link, the Press Advantage link for that press release, but you don't have that when you're putting the schema in place. So one of the things that we've got on the feature list to get developed is the ability to use kind of tags in that schema, so you can insert things that are specific to that press release or specific to our system itself, that lets you, so for example, you might the publish date, or like the URL, or automatically include the organization page, or something like that that's specific to that press release. You'll be able to include that dynamically, and that should make that that generation of the per release schema just a little bit easier. So if there's any tags or anything like that that you think would be useful for us to add to that, make sure to reach out to support and let us know. Okay, the next one is about republishing press releases. You should absolutely republish press releases if you have blog networks, syndication networks, anything like that. Use the per organization RSS feed to do that. Each organization that you set up gets its own dedicated RSS feed. You can use a feed munger if you want to kind of bust it up, or insert other things to it, whatever. There's lots of tools out there to do that. If you really want to talk about that, drop me an email. We can talk about some strategies for that in particular. But a lot of you have syndication networks, branded syndication networks for that client. You might have kind of your own internal PBN style thing, whatever. Don't hesitate to use the per org RSS feed to republish the release. As soon as the release goes live, it hits that feed, so it can hit all of your syndication networks as well. And then I also recommend that you publish them to social networks. You might use Buffer or whatever tool that you use to automate that. You can do it manually too, but we definitely recommend that you're posting press releases to other third-party social platforms, especially Twitter. One of the things that I wanted to point out, or I ended up pointing out to some folks last week that I was doing some call them consulting calls with, is that they're underutilizing their Twitter account. Twitter shows up in Google search. A lot of the other social platforms don't, but Twitter does, and so let's use that to our advantage. If you want to republish press releases onto the client website, you can. I do recommend republishing them and not necessarily embedding the release page, although you're welcome to do that if you'd like. I do think you just get better value out of republishing the actual content. If you're going to do this, I would recommend that you wait, a day or two after the release goes out and before you put it up there, just to avoid any, kind of attribution concerns or something like that, where Google might, decide that this was sourced from your website, as opposed to you're just resyndicating the other content. And then if you're doing, republishing, you may want to spend some time trying to, get them indexed. If you already have indexing strategies for these syndication networks, then it's probably taken care of. But these types of republished content, it will often require a little bit more help on the indexing front. Okay, our next best practice is talking about IFrame embeds. If you're not using iframes as part of your strategy, you can kind of skip this. If you want to know why you should be using iframes as part of your strategy, you can reach out and we can talk about that. If you are using iframe embeds as part of your strategy, then it's kind of important to follow these. The first one is the website preview option in the organization settings. What that does is that embeds the homepage, the link that you've given us, into every release and the organization page through an iframe. If you're not using iframe embeds, turn this on anyways. It'll help you. Don't worry about why, just do it. There's really no reason not to do this. The only thing that I can think of is if you're promoting somebody with a Shopify site, or somebody else that blocks iframe embeds, it can look kind of ugly for that. I don't know whether or not Google provides any attribution when that iframe embeds are blocked. I've not tested that, so there could potentially still be some value there, but it definitely doesn't look very good. And so you may want to disable it if that's the case. Some of your web hosts may block embeds. That's usually the most common non-Shopify related reason why your iframe embed doesn't work. If that's the case, you'll need to talk to your host or talk to your tech person and have them set it up so that you can embed these. There's also a secondary embed option in the organization settings, and what that does is it takes whatever URL you put in there and it puts a little 1x1 iframe on the bottom of every release and the bottom of the organization page, and you're going to use that to get the value out of an embed that for stuff that you don't want people to see. So that might be an ID page, it might be an iframe form, might be your cloud stack pages, Google Sheets, Drive stacks, any of these things that you might be, the kind of these back-end strategies that you might be using. You can use this to get embeds out there in a much more cost-effective way than ordering embed runs off of Fiverr or something like that. So definite value there. Again, if you're not using these and you want to kind of get an idea of why you might use these, give me a shout and we could talk about it. I think this is almost the last one, might be the last one, and we're going to talk about automation here. We're going to stay a little bit high level on this because we are going to go into detail during the advanced platform usage training, but definitely use the automation tools if you can. One of our kind of guiding principles is that we want our product to be as hands-free for you as possible. You may not choose to use it as hands-free as possible, but back in the link emperor days, you could literally set up a campaign and never touch it again, period. We didn't even have to come look on it. There wasn't any content to review, nothing. So you could get completely hands-free. And that was a real struggle for me personally when we started Press Advantage, because it was tough to get that automation there. You had to come in and set up your client. You had to come in and order press releases for your client. You had to come in and approve the content for your client. And there was a lot of touch points just for a given press release. And so we developed these automation tools and then have consistently kept refining them to remove as much of those touch points as you can. And so at this point, you can get it down to completely zero touch, where you onboard them once and you set up the automation, and then the only time you come back is to come back and turn off the automation when they stop paying you. Some people are comfortable doing that. Some people still want to see that content before it goes out, but you can still use the automation to order that content for you. You may want to just let's say you're using 2 press releases a month for that client. You may use automation for 1 press release a month and leave that second press release for something that is more newsworthy and more current, that is less focused on pure SEO results and much more focused on what's going on today. So you can find your happy middle ground there, but use as much of this as you can, because it will make your life easier. You can go from spending a few hours a month per client with us to literally 5 minutes per client per month, or even not at all with us. And I would much rather you spend your time elsewhere. And even if you're having VAs do this sort of thing, it's burning up their time too, that they could be effectively working on something else. You can automate regular releases, just kind of run-of-the-mill stuff, or we can also build stacks. We're not talking about stacks today. We'll talk about those in some, in some of the more advanced sessions, but you can automate them with this. And that is the last one. And so now we will jump into questions. All right. Omer asks, for example, for a cabinet wholesaler company, can you give a quick example of what the first, second, and third press releases would be? Yeah, absolutely. So the first press release, we're going to introduce the company. We're going to talk about when they were formed, why they were formed, kind of what their claim to fame is, why they're different. We're going to use a couple quotes in there to bring some of the juicy details in. We're going to link back to them. We're going to link to their YouTube page or a social platform or something like that, and call that good. And then that second one, we're going to maybe pick their best cabinet line, and we're going to talk about that cabinet line. Or we're going to talk about the fact that they'll do a free design consult and build your kitchen design for you, and and they may be using that to sell cabinets, but the benefit well, speaking from personal experience, designing a kitchen and picking cabinets is a giant pain. And so, for a prospective, customer of them to see, listed in there in the news that they give these free design consults where they'll help me build my kitchen out for me, and then we identify all the different cabinets, that's fantastic too. And then the third one, that would be a great opportunity to talk about a case study where they really put in this great kitchen for somebody. If it's pure wholesale, where they're not selling wholesale direct to consumer, then you may be talking a little bit more about some of the value, what is the value that retailer is going to get from them, and that's not a space I know a lot about, so it's tough for me to say specifically what kind of value they're going to get, but that you're going to use that second and then maybe third release in that brand stack to help establish that value for that customer. Hope that helps. Will I be sending the PowerPoint out? I will be attaching the PowerPoint slides to the support page that has the actual video on it. So right now, like last week's session, I just got it back this morning from the editor. We'll be posting that, so you can see that if you missed it, and we'll make sure to include the slides from that session in kind of on that same page. And so I'm not going to email it out or anything, but it'll be available there for kind of a one-click download. So my client wants to be on Forbes, USA Today, ABC. So ABC obviously, is part of, we have ABC outlets on our logo network. Forbes and USA Today, those are kind of for the higher end, we call them more earned media pickups. We can get placement in a lot of those. And so if that's of interest, to you specifically, definitely reach out, talk to support, let us know what you're looking for, and we can get you some pricing on that. Google News is an interesting topic, and I know I talked about this in the webinar I did, which you guys may or may not have seen, depending on when you became a customer. But back at the beginning of the year, I talked about what was going on with Google News, and Google News has really cracked down thanks to abuse on how it handles press release placement into Google News. We're still looking at options, but we don't really guarantee that anymore, unfortunately, just because Google itself has now stopped picking up a lot of press releases as part of Google News. I do have an angle that I'm playing with, but nothing that I want to kind of go publicly about anymore. So how about adding article news schema in Enterprise? Absolutely, you can do news schema, you can do FAQ schema, you can do review schema, you can do any kind of schema you want in there, and just kind of experiment what works. One classic example I love to use is we've got a guy who was promoting pub crawls in Budapest, Hungary, and he managed to get review stars on the press release in Google by using release specific schema. So I thought that was pretty creative and pretty cool. Jason, examples of releases with the schema stuff. I will try and add that into one of the later sessions, either the advanced session with with platform usage, or maybe the Ninja Trick session. Omer says using patch.com classifieds for, yes, patch.com is a great a great way to go. I don't typically talk a lot about everyone's different methods, just because everyone likes to have their own angle. I've seen some incredibly creative methods on getting press releases and really anything indexed that are not mainstream. So talk amongst yourselves, I guess I would say, and make sure you're part of good communities that where you can talk about that sort of thing. Tony asks about automation. What kind of directions does the writing team need? For the writing team is going to, inherently get a little bit less direction, because there's no real place to put a lot of detail. This is where using keywords and good subject matters, subject topics and things like that comes into play. I'm still trying to come up with a way for you to be able to kind of provide some additional guidance. Maybe it would be potential topics that you can write about. One way you can get around that is if you have 5 or 6 kind of high level and bits of instruction that would be broadly useful, for your press releases in general, then you could put those into the standing instructions field in the organization page. Again, we'll go over all of this in the hands-on platform training, but talking about it now, it doesn't hurt. Most of the stuff that you're putting into the automation is all of the other stuff that's in the fields, like images and URLs for videos and links and anchor text and top level subjects, that sort of thing. Most of the stuff that you would put into the order field is present in the automation form. Then again, we'll go over this in lots of detail, in the advanced session. Yes, I will go over some of the advanced strategies for embeds in the in one of our later trainings. Power user organization that we can. So Tony's asking if there's any specific, best practices for organizations that I've seen. I can't share anybody's specific setup, but what I can do is I can set up some sample organizations and show you what those best practices look like as one of those. So it would be mine then that I can share and not somebody else's. And I would be more than happy to do that. So I'll make sure to add that to a future session. All right, any other questions? I don't see any over in the chat. Any other last minute questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, I give you guys another minute or two to type in if you're typing. I do want to let you know that the schedule may have to change a little bit over the next couple of weeks. My personal schedule got a little crazy, and I may have to move days here or there. I will definitely let you know ahead of time if I have to reschedule that. I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try to keep this Friday time, but I did have a couple things come up over the next couple of weeks where I may need to, to push that to a different time. So I'll just put that out there for you. So Jason, just to recap with the PowerPoint, I am not emailing the PowerPoint, but I am going to put the PowerPoint next to the video recording when it goes live on the support page. So you will definitely have access to it. It'll just be, a week or so, depending on how backed up the editor is, or the video editor. So. And Mary is asking about whether it's possible to get one-on-one with me. So since you are in here live, that means that you upgraded to one of the new unlimited plans, because I didn't share this link with anybody else. As part of that offer, you got some one-on-one time with me. If you have not taken advantage of that yet and you would like to, then reach out to support. They will give you the link to schedule that time with me, and then we can get on Zoom and we'll talk about whatever we need to talk to. We can talk about overall best practices. We can talk about specific details for specific clients. I can help you develop your strategy for using press releases. I will do the most I can to help you be, very productive and get the best results you possibly can with our service. So, all right, anything else? Fantastic. Well, thank you again for your attention. I look forward to talking to you all next week. Next week, we're going to talk. We're going to dive into the platform, and we're going to go over how to use the platform, and that should be pretty useful there. Again, if I do have to bump the timing on that, I will do that with as much advance notice as I can. I'm hoping not to do that, but life sometimes gets in the way. So anyway, other than that, I wish you all a fantastic weekend, and we will see each other next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.